the suppression of the use of marijuana and of the forces lurking behind it are the most important jobs this department is now engaged in. In 1930, the records on marijuana in the Washington office of the Narcotics Division scarcely filled a small folder like this. Today, they fill cabinets.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Coloradians and everyone that's smart enough to listen from the outside.
One of the most amazing plants we've ever discovered.
The pot party, the trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
Willies! I got Willie pots!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Stoned Appetit with your host, as always, it's me, Kip, and I'm still in fucking Vegas. I'm drunk, I'm a little bit buzzed in a couple different ways, but the weed has got us feeling righteous. We've met a lot of cool folks here today, and it wouldn't be possible without our sponsors over at Seed & Smith. Thank you to our friends at Seed & Smith. As y'all know, we're big proponents of the dart pen, but they have a full gambit of options and arrays, from flour to wax. They've got edibles, the whole kit and caboodle, so to speak, with 2 locations of their own over on Oakland Street and then their second location on Heckler Way. But check out their website, seedandsmith.com. You can find their products all over the Front Range. Now to shift gears to weed, and a fellow industry in our Colorado neighborhood. So those that have been listening to our MJ Biz Con series have heard us talking to a wide array of business professionals from across the country. Well, this one's going to hit home for everybody. We have Miss Elizabeth Hogan, who works with the world-renowned Willies Reserve and Willie Nelson Cannabis Company. I don't know what the actual formalities are, but everyone knows it as Willies Reserve. Is that about right?
That is about right.
And that voice you hear is Elizabeth. So how are you today, Elizabeth?
I'm really good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing all right. First timer here at MJ Biz Con.
Oh, really?
I put some miles on the feet and on the vocal cords today. I'm not going to lie. How many? I just saw you counting on your leg.
This is my 7th MJ Biz Con. My first one was in 2014, and I'm super excited to be back.
So this is a question I've asked everybody before we've even gotten started. How crazy has the scene changed from your first year to this year?
I would say we have up-leveled in every way. I just took a quick spin around the floor.
What is up-leveled?
Well, let me tell you.
Leveled up?
Leveled up, up-leveled.
It's late. I didn't mean to bust your balls. Okay.
I'm inventing new shit here.
Hey, I like it. Let's stir some stuff up.
Okay, so here's some of the things.
Okay.
First of all, the quality of presentation on the floor is leaps and bounds above what it once was. But more than that, this show is enormous. Like, I think it used to take up half of this hall, and now it stretches from maybe 3 of these great big halls. It is so huge. I'm excited to be here and see all of these faces.
Okay, so is this kind of like a reunion? Obviously, with last year off on COVID, you're heavily entrenched in the scene. You're working with a massive brand. Are you just like fired up to see familiar faces, all the party people, all the vibes?
I really am. It's definitely still different. It's definitely still COVID. I'm really trying not to hug and kiss all the people that I love.
I've been sharing a vape pen with people all day. Give this shit. I'm over it.
But I am super excited to see folks. I know that a lot of people have been gearing up for this as a way to kind of bring everything they've been working on for the last 2 years back to the table and say either, look at this, or what do you think of this, or what can we do with this, whether it's an idea or a product or a project going on. I know that there is a lot of excitement to get the people back together.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've seen is this infectious, upbeat personality of like, all is not right in the world, obviously, for some folks, as they're persecuted for the same thing we're celebrating here. But there is this vibe of folks are like, it's like, hell yeah, we're back in action, and it's kind of like we've been joking about people that made sourdough at home and put it on. Some of these people have been tinkering with products that were already excellent, and they're like, look what I did in my spare time. And we're seeing that firsthand.
Yes, and I'm excited to see it both in cannabis companies and also in ancillary companies. Like some of the packaging and the presentation that is out here right now is fantastic. We are going to be lucky when this stuff hits the shelves and we get to have this array of shopping experience, and I am super excited about that.
Okay, so we've kind of given a little intro for our episode. I love your fucking vibe. You're a fucking party. I'm glad they saved you for last. Your vibe's infectious, and I'm ready to fucking go too. All right, so here's the question. Where are we from? Tell us a little bit about Elizabeth.
How'd
you get into the weed?
Well, okay, those are two different questions.
Okay.
But I grew up in Texas.
Okay.
And I wasn't into the weed until I went to college. I was at a Dave Matthews show my first year at school in Virginia, and I smoked out of a metal.
James Madison?
I was at the University of Virginia.
Oh.
But the concert was at the Roanoke High School, so or at a high school in Roanoke. Anyway.
That's where he's from, isn't it? Wasn't he like a frat party band? I remember.
Yes.
I mean,
it was his
huge
homeland.
in our college. Yeah.
That was my first pot. I was really good at it from the first puff, and I went all in.
You were like, okay, I love this. And Dave set the vibe.
I never knew I loved this so much.
So did you use that, Thomas Jefferson education, and you're like, I'm gonna, apply what I've learned in college and get into weed, or how'd you find your way?
Just like everybody, I hid my cannabis consumption from all of my employers for years and years and years.
I
pretended it wasn't me. I wasn't the reason I knew so much about pot.
Did you use fake urine growing up?
No, I never was in a situation where I had to fake it. I probably would have, though. I don't think I would have hesitated to fake it, but I was never in a situation where I needed to.
It works.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll call you later for tips if I run into trouble.
Well, now I hope not, because you work for one of the most prominent cannabis brands in America, in Willies Reserve. But before we get to that, how did you get in the weed scene?
So when I was lying about my cannabis consumption, for a long time I was a marketing consultant, and I did consumer research and brand strategy for companies who are trying to make their products or brands more relevant to a particular market or target audience or innovation opportunity. So my job and my profession was to get in there and weasel my way into hearts and minds through consumer focus groups and quantitative surveys and figure out why people were making the choices they were making about cars or technology or healthcare or packaged lettuce. And then help the brand.
Holy shit, what a name drop.
Respond. Yeah, packaged lettuce. That's
Shout
right.
out to Dole.
Shout out to Earthbound Farm. And then help those brands position more effectively to meet those consumers where they were shopping and with the ideas that they were bringing to that shopping experience. So I did a big project for a beer company. I did some positioning work for Corona and then all of the brands in the Modelo portfolio for about probably 5 years before we got the call about, do you want to help Willie Nelson figure out how to get into the cannabis space legally? And that was in 2014.
Were you operating out of Texas doing all this?
No, I was in Seattle at that point. So I grew up in Texas. I went to school in Virginia, but my professional life has all been.
So you were just kicking ass, and they were like, "Hey, it's kind of like in what is that movie? Friends with Benefits, when Justin Timberlake, they saw how great he was, and they were like, "Yeah, we want to pooch that guy."
I haven't seen that movie, but I definitely was excited for the call.
So were you like wanting to find a way in? Did you have to like kick a door in, or like put a bug in someone's ear? Or were you just kicking ass at Modelo?
To be honest, I didn't realize that there was so much opportunity in the cannabis space. I mean, I smoked lots of pot, but I wasn't engaged in the legal cannabis channel until that phone call. And then with the phone call, I was still scratching my head, but we designed a research study to understand how consumers in the U.S. were thinking about the future legal market, and went out and did this study. So we surveyed like 5,000 people, and then there were 1,500 respondents who made up our core constituents. And from those, we figured out 6 different types of cannabis attitudes that we could target. Once we knew those 6 types and we saw how Willie Nelson resonated with all 6 of these different personality types in the cannabis consumer world, I was like, heck yeah. First of all, I'm from Texas. Second of all, I have long red hair. Third, Willie Nelson resonates like crazy with some of the values and the drivers that bring people into cannabis. And honestly, it was just opportunity from day one. So we went and met him and had a great meeting and presented the idea of what we would do to get into the business. And I swear, he watched us give the presentation. He was super engaged, but I don't know if he retained a word of what we said. He was staring at us, I think, to make sure that we meant it and that we weren't faking it and that we were going to be in it to win it.
And he was like,
And then he handed me his vape pen across the table while I was doing my PowerPoint. I hit the vape pen. And kind of the rest is history. I mean, we went from there to putting together a business plan, to pitching that business plan, to gaining investment for that business plan, and then we started the company. I was definitely raising my hand to jump on board, to quit being a consultant and start being an
equity in Willies Reserve?
I am part
That's
of the
fucking legit.
I am part of a group of people who helped found the company, and I'm super proud of that. It's been one of the biggest honors of my career is the opportunity to have gotten to work on this.
Congrats,
and bring it into being a real thing.
And how you talk about it, we've had discussions all day, and the theme that I've noticed is everyone is passionate and loves what they do.
Yes.
And it seems like you were passionate about wondering how people tick. And then you were able to convey what you're savvy with what you're passionate about, and now you're running around here like the most bubbly motherfucker at 6 o'clock in the evening, still running this show.
Have you ever tried sativa?
Yeah, I can't do it. I like cocaine.
Oh, well, that'll also get you up.
Yeah, and espresso too. But sativa. It makes me think of when I wronged someone in high school. There's terp profiles that I do enjoy and don't, and some of those when you kind of blend, some of those vibes together. I don't mind them, but I don't need
What's your terpene of choice?
Fuck if I know. It's the one that makes me lay on the couch and not give a fuck, and usually hungry.
Okay.
That's the one. As someone who goes out and eats 4 times a day, I like the one that makes me hungry.
Okay.
And now I'm dependent on that for an appetite these days.
Ooh,
so
vicious cycle.
I don't eat until about noon or later every day, but it's not too bad. And so now let's talk a little bit more. We've talked a little bit about how you found your way into it. Enough about me. Let's talk a little bit about Willies Reserves. Everyone has seen it on shelves across Colorado, which is our main constituents. But y'all aren't just there. Y'all are, becoming a nationwide brand.
That's right.
Let's talk about navigating the pitfalls. Obviously, you mentioned y'all are based out of Colorado, but how's it been expanding? And have we sacrificed quality for quantity? Let's talk the nitty-gritty about why someone should try your weed.
Well, thanks. I'd love to. Willies Reserve is actually right now in Colorado, of course, also in Arizona, Nevada, California, Washington, Ohio, Maryland.
Pretty good.
I may have missed something. I don't know, guys.
It's been a big day.
It's been a big day. So one of the things that we promise, I'm doing air quotes, that we promise consumers is a connection to Willie Nelson's stash, right? If you think about the man, the myth, the legend, Willie Nelson, he's on a bus riding around the country, smoking pot and speaking out about it. And for 50 years, people were showing up at the back door of his gigs with pounds of pot to give him because they wanted Willie Nelson to smoke their pot. So offerings from the garden. When we conceptualized what the brand should be, that was 1,000% the starting point. Willie enjoys all the pot, everyone's pot. I've tried to get him to have favorites. I'm like, well, do you prefer this one or that one?
It's like if you ask my mom which child's her favorite.
She says yes.
Yeah, I love them all equally. There's none, I don't hate any of them.
That's right. Right.
That's a great way to go through life. It's like, no, I'm not racist. I don't hate anybody. I love everybody.
Right.
No, I don't hate any weed. I'll smoke all of it.
That's Willie's attitude toward pot. He loves it all. I brought him 10 jars to sample one time. I thought I could get him to write notes on the effect of these different things. He twisted the lid off of 3 jars in a row and just started rolling it up, smoking one joint after another. When I asked him, does this one make you want to take a nap or take a walk or, draw a picture or write a song? He got a sparkle in his eye and he looked at me and he said, I think this one makes me want to take a shit. Because that guy does not take anything too seriously, including weed. He really cares a lot about the practices and about the farmers and about the community around it. But when it comes down to the product, the answer is yes. You got it? Yes, he wants it. So we do set quality standards, pretty high quality standards for Willies Reserve. We want to reflect what he cares about in the industry. But as we go market to market, our process is to choose a selection of strains, to choose farmers to work with, and then to calibrate our set of products and packaging to the regulations that we have to follow in that market. And as everybody who's traveled and bought weed knows, those really vary quite a bit. California is different from Colorado, which is wildly different from Ohio. So a lot of what we're